named Ijeoma. She was a simple girl with a heart as wide as the sky, known for her kindness and the bright smile that warmed even the coldest mornings. Ijeoma lived with her parents, Mama Nkechi and Papa Okafor, in a small mud house with a thatched roof. Though they were not rich, their home overflowed with laughter, hard work, and love. Ijeoma spent her days helping her parents tend their small yam farm, fetching water from the village well, and carrying baskets to market. She greeted everyone she met with a cheerful "good morning," her braided hair bouncing as she walked. The people of Obaji admired her, not for riches or beauty alone, but for her pure heart. Elders often said, "Kindness wears no crown, but its light shines the brightest." Children flocked to her side, drawn by her patience and gentleness. But not all hearts in Obaji were as warm. Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi, three girls who often sat together under the mango tree near the village square, watched Ijeoma with bitter eyes. To the villagers, they seemed ordinary girls, laughing and whispering secrets. But deep within, they nursed a growing envy. They saw how people loved Ijeoma, how the boys lingered when she passed, how even the elders spoke her name with pride. In their hearts, jealousy festered. Nkiru, the tallest and boldest, clenched her fists whenever she heard someone praise Ijeoma. Chinwe, stocky and sharp-tongued, sneered whenever Ijeoma smiled, and Ngozi, silent but deadly with her gaze, burned with an anger she could not voice. They masked their envy with false friendship. When Ijeoma passed by, they would call out to her with honeyed words, "Ijeoma, come sit with us," or "Ijeoma, how your hair shines like river silk today." And Ijeoma, trusting and gentle, believed them. She would sit and laugh with them, unaware of the sharp thorns hidden beneath their smiles. One day, as the dry season neared its end and the dust danced in golden spirals, news spread through Obaji. The neighboring town of Umudim would host the annual Festival of the Spirits. Drums would beat, dancers would whirl, and feasts would fill the streets. The villagers buzzed with excitement. It was a tradition as old as the hills, a day to honor the river and the spirits of the land. Ijeoma's eyes sparkled when she heard the news, but her excitement dimmed quickly. Her parents, wise and cautious, pulled her aside. "My daughter," Mama Nkechi said gently, her hands firm on Ijeoma's shoulders. "The road to Umudim is long, and the Ijimere River must be crossed. It is not safe. And the river must be respected," Papa Okafor added, his voice grave. "Many have forgotten the old ways. Without an offering, the river's guardian, Omalicha, may claim you." Ijeoma nodded, though her heart ached with longing. She promised to stay home, to help with the chores, and avoid the temptation of the festival. Her parents smiled, trusting her word. But as the sun sank behind the hills that evening, and the crickets began their night songs, Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi sat under the mango tree, their heads close together, plotting. "This festival," Nkiru whispered, her eyes glinting. "It will be our chance. We'll make sure she goes." Chinwe chuckled darkly. "She'll not return." Ngozi said nothing, but her smile was cruel. Beneath the moonlit sky, three shadows conspired against a heart too pure to suspect the evil hidden in friendly faces. And so the seeds of betrayal were sown, as Obaji slumbered under a blanket of stars. The morning sun painted the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, as Obaji woke to another day. Ijeoma tied her wrapper tightly around her waist and swept the front yard, the broom dancing over the dusty earth. Humming a soft tune, she tried to chase away the thought of the festival, but the image of the bright colors and lively drums danced stubbornly in her mind. As she worked, she did not see Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi approaching. The three girls exchanged quick glances, their faces bright with false cheer. "Nenem," Nkiru called out sweetly, using the affectionate name for a dear friend. "Are you not coming to Umudim with us today?" Ijeoma looked up startled. "I cannot. My parents said it is too dangerous. They told me to stay home." Chinwe pouted, stepping closer. "But it's the festival of the spirits, Ijeoma. Everyone will be there. Music, food, dancing. Don't you want to see it?" Ngozi added in a soft voice, "We will be with you. Nothing bad will happen." Ijeoma hesitated. She could almost hear her mother's warning echo in her ears. But she also heard the excitement in her friends' voices, saw their smiles, felt their eagerness. And wasn't it true that everything felt safer with friends? Still, she shook her head. I have chores to finish. Nkiru stepped forward, her voice coaxing. We will help you. Many hands make light work, right? Before Ijeoma could respond, Chinwe grabbed a broom, and Ngozi began folding the laundry drying on the line. The three girls worked quickly, laughing and chattering as if they had been friends forever. Caught up in their energy, Yoma's worries began to fade. Surely, she thought, there could be no harm in a day of joy, just this once. By midday, the chores were done. The compound was clean, the laundry folded, and the yams sorted. Ijeoma wiped her brow and smiled gratefully at her friends. You see, Nkiru said, slipping her arm through Ijeoma's. Now there is nothing stopping you. Ijeoma looked down the dusty path that led out of the village. Beyond the trees and the hills lay Umudim, vibrant and alive with the festival. She bit her lip, torn. My parents, she began. Chinwe interrupted quickly. They'll never know. You'll be back before they return. Ngozi nodded, her dark eyes shining. We will protect you. Their voices wove a spell around Ijeoma's heart, tugging at her longing for adventure. She smiled, a little unsure but willing. All right, she said softly. I'll come with you. Cheers erupted from the girls. They clasped her hands and danced in a small circle, their laughter filling the air. Ijeoma couldn't help but join in, feeling the excitement bubble within her. As they set off, the road stretched before them, a ribbon of promise winding through the forest. Birds sang in the trees, and the breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. But as they neared the Ijimere River, the air grew still. The once bustling sounds of nature quieted, as if the forest itself held its breath. The river appeared, a wide band of dark water gleaming under the afternoon sun. Flat stones, slick and moss-covered, formed a crooked path across it. Ijeoma paused, sensing something different in the air. The river's surface was unnaturally smooth, almost glass-like. A strange chill pricked at her skin. Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi stepped forward confidently, hopping from stone to stone without a glance back. Ijeoma followed carefully, her sandals gripping the stones. She did not know that the river was no ordinary water. She did not know about Omalicha, the spirit beneath the surface, or the sacred rule that demanded an offering for safe passage. The three girls did. They each tucked small gifts, pieces of kola nut, crumbs of bread, into their wraps, silent, hidden offerings for the river guardian. Ijeoma had nothing. The river seemed to watch her, to whisper warnings she did not understand. But she was blind to the danger, trusting the girls whose smiles hid dark secrets. And so, step by step, Ijeoma crossed the Ijimere River, unaware that her journey toward joy was leading her closer to betrayal. The road beyond the Ijimere River opened into fields, and soon the distant sounds of drums, flutes, and laughter reached their ears. Umudim village was alive with celebration. Colorful fabrics flapped in the breeze. The scent of roasted maize, spicy suya, and sweet palm wine filled the air. Stalls lined the paths offering woven baskets, carved figurines, and beads that sparkled in the sun. Ijeoma's eyes widened with wonder. She had never seen such sights. Masks painted with fierce faces, dancers spinning to the rhythms of talking drums, women carrying trays of food on their heads with effortless grace. Her heart raced with excitement. For the first time, she stepped away from the shadows of home and into the brilliance of the wider world. The other girls stayed close, pointing at the sights, laughing and pretending joy. Yet, beneath their cheerful chatter, resentment festered. It was not long before Ijeoma drew attention. Wherever she walked, heads turned. Young men nudged each other and whispered, their eyes lingering on her graceful steps, her radiant smile. She wore a simple, hand-dyed wrapper, yet to the crowd she shone brighter than those adorned in the richest fabrics. Among the onlookers, a tall, well-built young man in a plain tunic watched her closely. Obiora, though dressed like a common villager, carried an air of quiet dignity, his eyes warm and kind, followed Ijeoma not with the hunger others showed, but with a deep admiration. He stepped forward, offering a polite smile. "Good afternoon," he said in a low, respectful voice. "You must be from Obaji. I have not seen you here before." Ijeoma blushed, lowering her gaze shyly. "Yes, I came with friends." Obiora chuckled softly. "Then your friends have brought a blessing to our festival." His words were genuine, without flattery. He offered his hand. "Would you walk with me? I can show you the best of Umudim." Ijeoma hesitated, glancing back at Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi, who stood a short distance away, their smiles strained. But Obiora's kindness and calm demeanor put her at ease. "I would like that," she said. Together they wandered through the festival. Obiora pointed out the best performers, explained the meanings behind the intricate masks, and even bought her a small carved necklace from a craftsman's stall. Ijeoma laughed freely, the weight she hadn't realized she was carrying lifting from her shoulders. But not everyone shared her happiness. From the shadows, Nkiru's hands tightened into fists. Chinwe's eyes burned with anger. Ngozi's lips thinned into a hard line. They had not foreseen this. They had expected Ijeoma to be grateful, to fade into the crowd and make them shine. Instead, she stood out more brightly than ever. "Look at her," Nkiru muttered under her breath. "Stealing the attention as always." Chinwe sneered. "And we helped her get here." Ngozi said nothing, but her silence was more dangerous than words. As Ijeoma and Obiora moved deeper into the festival, unaware of the cold eyes fixed upon them, the three girls huddled together. "This must end," Nkiru hissed. "Tonight," Chinwe agreed, nodding. Ngozi merely smiled, and the smile was as sharp as broken glass. The festival swirled on, drums pounding, voices singing, the air electric with life. But beneath the bright joy, a dark plan twisted and grew, fed by envy and bitterness. And soon it would unfold. As the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned a soft purple, the drums of Umudim slowed and the festival began to wind down. Smoke from the cooking fires curled into the evening air, and tired laughter floated across the fields. Ijeoma stood with Obiora, her cheeks flushed from the day's excitement. In her hands she clutched the small carved necklace he had given her, a token she would treasure. She smiled warmly at him. "Thank you for today," she said softly. Obiora bowed slightly. "The thanks is mine, Ijeoma. You have brought light to this day." They parted reluctantly, each lingering in their gaze before Ijeoma turned back toward the path that would lead her home. Waiting for her were Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi. Their faces were tight with forced smiles. "We should leave now," Nkiru said briskly. "Yes," Chinwe agreed, her voice clipped. "It's getting late." Ngozi said nothing, only nodded. Together the four girls began the journey back to Obaji, their footsteps stirring the dust on the winding path. As the last of the festival's sounds faded behind them, a heavy silence settled. Ijeoma, tired but happy, walked a few steps behind, humming to herself. When they reached the Ijimere River, the world seemed to hold its breath. The water, dark and still, reflected the pale light of the rising moon. The stones that formed the crossing were slick and shadowed. Ijeoma paused at the bank. There was an odd chill in the air, the kind that raised the hairs on the back of her neck. Her fingers tightened around the necklace Obiora had given her. The girls moved swiftly. Nkiru reached into the folds of her wrapper and pulled out a small packet of food, crushed kola nuts. Chinwe and Ngozi did the same, each producing a token offering. Quietly, they knelt by the riverbank and placed their offerings on the stones, murmuring the old words their mothers had taught them. The river accepted the gifts, its surface rippling softly. Ijeoma watched, confused. She had no offering. No one had told her to bring one. She stepped forward hesitantly. "What are you doing?" Nkiru stood, brushing the dust from her knees. "You didn't bring anything?" she asked, her voice dripping with false surprise. Ijeoma shook her head. "I didn't know," Chinwe hissed. "Didn't your parents warn you? Omalicha demands an offering to cross safely," Panic prickled at Ijeoma's skin. "Please, can I have a little from yours?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ngozi smirked, clutching her small parcel closer. "There's barely enough for ourselves." "You should have been prepared." Ijeoma's heart pounded. "Please," she whispered. "Just a little." The three girls exchanged a look, one of satisfaction, and stepped back. "We can't risk it," Nkiru said with a shrug. "Good luck, Ijeoma." Without another word, they began crossing the river, stepping carefully from stone to stone, the moonlight glinting off the water. They didn't look back. Ijeoma stood frozen. Fear clawed at her throat. She turned to the river, its dark surface now swirling gently, as if something beneath it had awakened. A soft, lilting voice rose from the depths. "Who dares cross without an offering?" From the shadows beneath the water, a figure emerged. Omalicha, the river spirit. Her hair flowed like liquid night, her skin gleamed like moonlit water, and her eyes burned with a deep, ancient sorrow. Ijeoma stumbled back, terror gripping her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Omalicha's voice, cold and pitiless, echoed across the river. "Those who do not respect the sacred ways must pay." Before Ijeoma could move, tendrils of water shot forward, wrapping around her ankles and wrists. She cried out, but the water was merciless, pulling her toward the river's dark heart. "No, please!" she screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the night. The last thing she saw before the water closed over her head was the cold, triumphant smiles of the girls on the other side. And then, only darkness, only silence, as the river claimed her. Morning came to Obaji village with the slow stretch of sunlight over the fields. Birds sang their usual greetings, and the scent of dew on earth rose with the breeze. Yet something was wrong, deeply wrong. In a small compound at the village's edge, Mama Nkechi stirred a pot of watery yam porridge. Her heart felt heavy. Papa Okafor sharpened his cutlass in slow, distracted strokes. Neither could explain the gnawing worry that had crept into their bones overnight. By midday, worry turned to fear. Ijeoma had not returned. Neighbors shook their heads when asked. "We have not seen her since yesterday," they murmured. Some offered comfort. Others whispered among themselves. The village square filled with murmurs. No one, not even the elders, could ignore the emptiness where Ijeoma's laughter usually rang. Later that afternoon, Mama Nkechi, her wrapper loosely tied, her eyes hollow, gathered the courage to seek out the last known companions of her daughter. Under the large mango tree sat Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi. They chatted idly, but their laughter was forced, too sharp. "My daughters," Mama Nkechi called out, her voice cracking. "You went with Ijeoma to the festival, did you not?" Nkiru, always the boldest, rose to her feet in feigned concern. "Yes, Mama Nkechi, we were together." "But after the dances," Chinwe continued, "we lost her. She must have stayed behind. We thought she returned before us." Ngozi only nodded, her face a mask of solemnity. Mama Nkechi clutched her wrapper tighter, her mouth trembling. She could hear their words, but her heart would not believe them. Ijeoma would never wander off without a word. Word spread fast. Soon all of Obaji knew. Ijeoma was missing. The elders gathered under the Iroko tree. The king, Eze Nanana, listened gravely to the report. Villagers muttered in tight circles, speaking of the old stories. The river's appetite for those who disrespected its guardian, the spirit Omalicha. That night, as Mama Nkechi and Papa Okafor sat outside, their small clay lamp flickering, a soft fluttering interrupted their sorrow. A bright figure perched on a nearby guava tree. Ikemba, the village parrot, its feathers a blaze of red and blue. Mama Nkechi wiped her tears and watched, curious. The parrot tilted its head, then began to sing. Not a tune, but a song, a broken melody woven with words. She crossed the river, no offering, friends betrayed, laughter cold, river claimed her. The words tumbled out, each one cutting deeper than a knife. Mama Nkechi gasped, pressing a hand to her mouth. Papa Okafor leapt to his feet, anger flashing in his eyes. "Tell us, Ikemba," he demanded, voice trembling. "Tell us what you saw." The parrot, in a mournful voice, repeated the story. Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi had crossed safely, their offerings accepted. They had left Ijeoma behind, with nothing to give. They had watched her fall into the river and done nothing. The truth spread like wildfire. By dawn, the villagers gathered at the square once more, this time with fierce eyes and tight mouths. Betrayal had come from within their midst. But Mama Nkechi and Papa Okafor had no time for anger. Their daughter was out there, somewhere beneath the dark waters. Lost, but perhaps not gone. "We must go to the river," Mama Nkechi said, her voice firm for the first time in days. Papa Okafor nodded. "We will bring her home, or we will not return." As they turned toward the path that led to the Ijimere River, the villagers followed in silence, a long, solemn line. Behind them, Ikemba flew from branch to branch, still singing the song of betrayal, as if to remind all that the truth cannot stay buried. Ahead, the river waited, deep, dark, and cold. Somewhere within it, their daughter called for them, and they would answer, no matter the cost. The walk to the Ijimere River was heavy with silence. Only the crunch of feet on the dry path and the soft whispers of wind in the trees kept company with Mama Nkechi, Papa Okafor, and the villagers who trailed behind. At the river's edge, the water gleamed darkly under the morning sun. It looked deceptively calm, as if daring them to forget the ancient warnings whispered through generations. Mama Nkechi stepped forward first, the hem of her wrapper brushing the earth. Papa Okafor stood beside her, tall and unwavering, though his hands trembled slightly. They clasped hands. Together they called out, their voices strong but pleading. "O great spirit of the river, Omalicha, hear our cry, return our daughter to us. She crossed in innocence, unaware of your sacred laws. Mercy, we beg of you." The river rippled, soft at first, then with greater urgency. From the center, a figure began to rise, her form shimmering with the grace of water itself. Omalicha emerged, her hair flowing like black silk, her eyes as deep and sorrowful as forgotten songs. She gazed at them, her expression unreadable. "Your daughter broke the ancient rule," Omalicha spoke, her voice low and endless, like the river's current. "For that, she serves me now, bound by her disrespect." Mama Nkechi fell to her knees, her voice trembling. "She is but a child, Spirit Mother. She did not know." Papa Okafor bowed low. "Take us instead. Spare her, we beg you." The river spirit's gaze softened. Barely, but she shook her head. "The laws of the river are older than memory. One does not cross without payment. However," she paused and the air grew still, "if you wish to free her, you must prove your love." She pointed to the river. The waters churned, dark and wild. "Cross this river with no boat, no bridge, no help. Let your love guide you. If you succeed, Ijeoma will be freed. If you fail, you shall join her." Gasps rippled through the gathered villagers. The river before them stretched wide and ominous, its depths unknown. To step in was to invite death, but Mama Nkechi and Papa Okafor exchanged a look. Fearful, yes, but firm. They waded forward, hand in hand. The water was icy, wrapping around their ankles like living things. Step by step, they moved deeper, the current pulling at their legs with invisible hands. The villagers watched, helpless, some whispering prayers, others covering their mouths. Halfway across, the current grew fiercer. Water clawed at them, tugging, dragging, pushing them to fall. Mama Nkechi stumbled, but Papa Okafor caught her, tightening his grip. She leaned on him, whispering words of encouragement neither could fully hear over the rush of the water. Their feet slipped, the river roared, but they pressed on. And then, just as their strength began to fail, a breeze rose from nowhere. Not a harsh wind, but a soft, steady force, gentle yet firm. It wrapped around them, lifting their burden, steadying their steps. A hush fell over the riverbank as the villagers watched the invisible hand of the divine, the spirit wind. Step by painful step, the couple moved forward, the wind guiding them like a loving hand. Their love, pure and unwavering, was their shield. When they reached the far bank, soaked and trembling, a hush fell. Omalicha watched them, with eyes that gleamed, not with malice, but with something ancient and sorrowful. "You have shown a love that even the river must honor," she said quietly. She turned, and from the swirling mist over the water, Ijeoma emerged. Her face was pale but alive, her eyes wide with disbelief. She staggered forward and her parents caught her in their arms, pulling her close, tears mingling with the river water on their cheeks. The villagers burst into cheers, the sound echoing through the hills. Ijeoma was home. But even as joy filled the air, Omalicha's gaze lingered on the family, a shadow of old sorrow in her smile, as if remembering a love she herself had lost long ago. The sun was rising higher over Obaji village by the time Mama Nkechi, Papa Okafor, and Ijeoma returned, wet and weary but triumphant. The villagers followed, singing songs of victory, clapping hands, and throwing palm fronds into the air as a sign of celebration. Ijeoma's safe return was nothing short of a miracle. But beneath the joy, a darker current stirred one not forgotten. Ikemba, the faithful parrot, perched high on a tree branch, flapped its wings and sang again. "Betrayal hides in smiles. Left her alone," River claimed. The villagers' faces darkened. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like a rising tide. The truth, once hidden, now screamed from every corner of the square. Ezenana, the old king of Obaji, sat beneath the great Iroko tree, his staff in hand, his eyes heavy with disappointment. He called for Nkiru, Chinwe, and Ngozi to be brought before him. The three girls were found huddled together at the edge of the forest, their faces pale, their steps reluctant. No more could they hide behind sweet words and false smiles. They were led to the center of the square, where all could see. Ezenana's voice rang out, sharp and clear. "Is it true, daughters of Obaji, that you knew of the river's law and hid it from your sister? That you crossed safely, leaving her to the mercy of Omalicha?" Nkiru, her bravado gone, lowered her head. Chinwe wrung her hands. Ngozi stared blankly, her lips pressed into a tight line. They said nothing. Silence was their answer, and it spoke louder than any denial. Ezenana's face hardened. "You betrayed the trust of your sister and the sacred laws of our land. Such treachery cannot be left to stain our village." The king stood, leaning heavily on his staff. "You shall be banished from Obaji. Today and forever, you are no longer of us. Let this be a lesson. Envy rots the heart, and betrayal poisons the soul." Gasps and murmurs filled the air. The villagers stepped back, forming a path that led out of the square, out of the village, out of the life they had known. Nkiru began to sob. Chinwe pleaded with her eyes, and Ngozi shook her head as if waking from a bad dream. But none dared speak against the king's decree. Without a word, the three girls turned and walked the path alone, their heads bowed, their shoulders heavy with shame. The villagers watched in silence until the girls disappeared beyond the hills. Only then did Ezenana turn to Ijeoma, who stood quietly between her parents, clutching their hands. "You, Ijeoma, have endured the cruelty of false friends and the wrath of the river. Yet you return not with bitterness, but with grace. May your kindness remain unshaken." Ijeoma bowed her head, humble and grateful. She was home, safe and whole. Her heart, though bruised, would heal. That evening, as the village celebrated her return with drums and dancing, Ijeoma sat quietly by the fire, her parents close beside her. The stars blinked above, and the air was thick with the scent of roasting yams and wood smoke. From the shadows, Obiora appeared, his plain tunic gone, replaced by rich fabrics embroidered in gold. His bearing was princely now, unmistakable. "Ijeoma," he said softly, "may I sit?" She smiled and nodded, moving aside to make space. I have something to confess, he said. I am not just a boy from Umudim. I am the prince of the neighboring kingdom, sent to learn among common folk before taking the throne. Ijeoma's eyes widened in surprise. Obiora smiled. And among all I have seen, it is your kindness, your courage, and your heart that have taught me the greatest lesson. He knelt before her, pulling from his robe a small carved ring. Simple but elegant. Ijeoma, will you honor me by becoming my queen? Gasps and joyous laughter burst from those nearby, and Mama Nkechi clapped her hands to her mouth in amazement. Ijeoma blinked back tears. She thought of all she had lost, and now, all she had gained. Yes, she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. I will. The village erupted in cheers. Drums beat louder, dancers whirled faster, and the night became a festival grander than any they had ever known. A day that began in sorrow ended in celebration. And above it all, perched high on a tree branch, Ikemba the parrot sang a new song, a song of love, of justice, and of the truth that even the river could not drown. Days after the joyful celebrations, Obaji village slowly settled back into its peaceful rhythm. Yet in the heart of Ijeoma, there remained a quiet pull, an unfinished story that needed an ending. One early morning, as the mist still clung to the fields, Ijeoma slipped away from her home, a small basket in her hands. In it were gifts, fresh yam, a calabash of palm oil, and a woven cloth embroidered by her own hand, a token of gratitude. She made her way alone to the Ijimere River, its surface calm and glistening under the new sun. As she approached, she called softly, "O great spirit of the river, Omalicha, I have come to thank you." The water rippled gently, and from its depths, Omalicha rose once more. Her dark hair floated around her, her shimmering form both beautiful and haunting. Ijeoma knelt at the riverbank and placed her basket gently by the water's edge. "Thank you for your mercy," she said. "Thank you for letting love win." Omalicha regarded her silently. Then in a voice softer than the wind she spoke, "Many cross these waters, child, but few return. Even fewer return with gratitude." Her eyes, once hard as river stones, now shimmered with a sadness that went beyond the ages. Ijeoma listened as Omalicha spoke, her words heavy with memory. "Long ago," Omalicha began, "I was not as you see me now. I was a maiden, much like you, joyful, kind, full of dreams, but jealousy and cruelty tore my life apart. Betrayed by those I trusted, cursed by a witch who envied my beauty, I was bound to these waters, forever to test the hearts of men." Ijeoma's heart ached at the story. She understood now Omalicha's coldness was not born of malice, but of old wounds, festering and forgotten. "But your parents," Omalicha continued, her voice a whisper, "reminded me that love still exists in this world, that there is still goodness worth protecting." She smiled, not a cruel or bitter smile, but a gentle, wistful one. "Because of you and your family, I believe again. And for that, I will ask for freedom." Ijeoma tilted her head, confused. Omalicha raised her arms, and the river stirred. The waters shimmered, turning from deep black to crystal clarity. The village priest, the elders, and even Obiora and the king, Ezenana, gathered at the river's edge, drawn by the strange light. The village priest stepped forward, carrying sacred palm fronds and kola nuts, and began to chant in the old tongue. The river sang in response a low, mournful melody that carried through the trees. With the final words, a burst of light erupted from the water. Omalicha stood tall, her hair gleaming gold, her skin radiant. The curse that had bound her for centuries broke apart like mist. "I am free," she whispered. She turned to Ijeoma, her gaze full of peace. "Live well, child of Obaji. Let your heart remain pure, for it is the most precious offering of all." And with a final smile, Omalicha dissolved into the mist, her spirit finally at rest. The river calmed, now clearer than ever, a living memory of love, redemption, and second chances. The villagers cheered, their joy rising to the skies. Ijeoma smiled through tears, feeling the warmth of her parents' embrace and Obiora's steady hand in hers. In the days that followed, Ijeoma and Obiora were wed beneath a great Iroko tree, surrounded by laughter, music, and blessings. Their marriage was not just a union of hearts, but a symbol that even after betrayal and sorrow, goodness can endure, love can heal, and broken spirits can find peace. And so Obaji village prospered, its river no longer a place of fear, but of life and remembrance. And on quiet evenings, if you listened carefully by the river's edge, you could still hear the faintest whisper of a song not of betrayal, but of hope. A song carried by the wind, sung by the trees, and remembered by all who dared to believe in the power of love.